Let's be honest. Have you ever looked at a project status report and wondered if you were seeing the real picture or just a whole lot of optimism? Well, today we're going to cut through all of that. We're diving into the absolute foundation of earned value management, the three numbers that will change how you see project health forever. We're talking about planned value, earned value, and actual cost. And trust me, by the time we're done here, you'll have the core knowledge to not just crush it on your PMP exam, but to manage any project with total confidence.
Okay, so let's get right into it. We have all been there, right? A team member comes to you and says a task is, I don't know, 80% complete. And that feels good. It sounds like progress. But what does 80% really mean? Is it 80% of the time, 80% of the effort? This is the huge problem with subjective reporting. It's based on gut feelings, not hard data. And that can lead to some nasty surprises later on. We need a way to see what's actually happening before it's too late to do anything about it.
And this is the real headache for project managers, for executives, for everyone. I mean, how can you confidently make big decisions about resources, about deadlines, when your data is basically fuzzy? It's kind of like trying to navigate a ship through a storm with a blurry map. You're just asking for trouble. You need a clear, objective view to make the right calls.
Now, here's a classic line. I'm sure you've heard this or maybe even said it yourself. We're 70% complete and we've only spent 65% of the budget. We're doing great. On the surface, that sounds pretty good, right? But hang on. This statement is dangerously misleading. It's comparing how much work we think we've done against our spending, but it tells us absolutely nothing about our schedule. It's an incomplete picture, and it can hide some really serious problems lurking just beneath the surface.
And this is precisely why earned value management is such a game changer. EVM strips away all that guesswork, all those fuzzy feelings, and replaces them with cold, hard, quantifiable data. It's a system designed to give you one integrated, objective look at your project across all three critical areas: your scope, your schedule, and your cost. No more guessing. So you're probably asking, how does it do that? What's the secret sauce? Well, it all boils down to three core metrics. People in the business often call them the Holy Trinity of project management, and for good reason. They are, quite literally, the foundation for everything else in EVM.
And here they are, your three new best friends: planned value, or PV, earned value, or EV, and actual cost, or AC. Every single performance metric, every variance, every forecast we're going to talk about in this series, it all comes directly from these three numbers. If you can get a solid grip on these three, you've unlocked the entire system.
All right, so let's pull these apart and look at them one by one. The best way to really understand them is to think of each metric as the answer to a very simple, very direct question about your project.
First up, we have planned value, PV. Just think of this as your plan. It answers the question, according to our schedule, how much work should we have done by now? It's the authorized budget for the work that was scheduled to be finished by a certain date. So if your project plan says you should have completed $10,000 worth of work by Friday, then on Friday, your planned value is $10,000. Simple. It's also known as the budgeted cost of work scheduled, or BCWS.
Next up is earned value, or EV. Now this is where the magic really starts to happen. EV measures the value of the work you have actually completed. And here's the crucial part. It's measured in terms of its original budgeted cost. It answers the question, of the work we've finished, what is it actually worth based on our original plan? So let's say that $10,000 task from the plan is only half finished. Well, your earned value is just $5,000. It doesn't matter how much time you spent or how much money you burned through, the value you've earned is $5,000. This is also called the budgeted cost of work performed, or BCWP.
And finally, the third piece of the puzzle, actual cost, or AC. This one's the easiest to understand. It's the no-nonsense reality check. It's the total amount of money you've actually spent to get the work done so far. You just look at your accounting books, and there it is. It answers that one simple question: how much did we really spend? You'll also hear it called the actual cost of work performed, or ACWP.
So let's put it all together right here. It really boils down to this. Planned value is your plan. It's where you should be. Earned value is your real accomplishment. It's where you actually are in terms of work completed. And actual cost is your spending. It's what you actually paid. Plan, accomplishment, and spending. When you start comparing these three numbers, you can suddenly tell the true unvarnished story of your project's performance. Okay, so we've got these three powerful metrics, but
what are we measuring them against? They can't just float around in space, right? To know if you're on track, you need to have a track to begin with. And that's where the performance measurement baseline comes in. The performance measurement baseline, or PMB, is basically the official ruler for your entire project. It's the approved plan, broken down over time, that you create during the planning phase. This is the line in the sand. It's the agreed upon standard that everything gets measured against. Without a solid approved PMB, all your EVM calculations are just numbers without any meaning. It is the absolute bedrock of project control and accountability. So now we have the whole setup. We've got our 3 core metrics, PV, EV, and AC, and we're measuring them against a solid baseline, the PMB. So what? What does this actually let us do? How do we turn all this data into smarter, faster, better decisions? Think of PV, EV, and AC as your raw ingredients. By themselves, they're interesting, but the real power comes when you combine them. When you start comparing them to each other, you synthesize them, and that's when you unlock incredible strategic insights. This is how you calculate if you're ahead or behind schedule, over or under budget. This is how you can actually forecast with startling accuracy where your project is headed. And the benefits here are huge, and they're immediate. You finally get to track performance objectively, which builds massive trust with your stakeholders. You get early warning signs that trouble is brewing way before it becomes a full-blown crisis, and you can make forecasts about the future based on actual performance data, not just wishful thinking. So for anyone studying for the PMP, you know this is absolutely essential. But for anyone actually managing projects, this isn't just theory. This is your toolkit for success. So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. When you look at your own projects, at your own organization, are you managing by opinion, or are you managing by objective fact? Are you navigating with a clear map, or are you just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best? Earned value management gives you the map, it gives you the compass. It gives you the tools to see the truth and to make better decisions. And that choice can make all the difference in the world.
Learning reinforcement.
Project leadership often relies on a dangerous illusion, the subjective status update. We feel like we're 80% done is not a metric, it is a guess. True project control requires a structural, data-driven framework. Welcome to PMP EVM Mastery 2026, covering predictive and hybrid environments. This is episode 2, the 3 core metrics: planned value, earned value, actual cost. Earned value management is built on a triad of numbers: planned value, earned value, and actual cost. These 3 metrics provide the necessary data for every earned value calculation. Every index, forecast, and variance is built entirely upon them. When teams estimate progress purely by timeline or gut feeling, late-stage financial risks remain hidden until the budget is already exhausted. Earned value management strips away that subjectivity. It provides executive leadership with an objective, quantified reality of project health. This mathematical rigor applies equally whether you are executing a strictly planned construction build or managing a fluid, hybrid software release. Every variance report, efficiency index, and revised budget forecast presented to the C-suite is derived entirely from the intersection of these 3 specific numbers. Without mastering this specific triad, project control remains guesswork disguised as optimism. To measure progress objectively, we first need a fixed point of reference to measure against. That reference point is the Performance Measurement Baseline, or PMB. It is the approved, time-phased budget for all planned project work. This is a locked financial plan, not a rough estimate or a moving target. This chart shows the relationship between time and capital. The yellow line represents our project timeline, while the charcoal curve plotting upward is the cumulative budget. This baseline curve is created and locked during the planning phase, before execution begins. From that moment forward, it serves as the sole reference point for calculating all future earned value metrics. Without an approved baseline, tracking objective progress is mathematically impossible. There is simply nothing to measure against. The PMB acts as the ultimate corporate contract, the singular source of truth against which all execution is judged. This brings us to the first node of the triad, planned value, or PV. PV is the authorized budget strictly for the work scheduled to be completed by a specific point in time. It answers a direct executive question: what did we plan to spend so far?
On the PMP exam and in legacy reporting, you will also see this called the Budgeted Cost of Work Scheduled, or BCWS. If we drop a vertical bar at today's date, the point where it intersects the baseline curve gives us our planned value. We quantify exactly where the project should be today. The shaded area represents the scheduled work. Planned value establishes the standard expectation for project progress. Planned value represents the financial capitalization of the work we expected to have done by this date. We know the planned expectation. Now we measure the actual accomplishment through earned value, or EV. Earned value measures the physical work actually completed, but it expresses that work strictly in the approved budget dollars assigned to it. It answers the question, how much work have we actually accomplished in budget terms? This metric connects directly to performance, which is why it is also known as the Budgeted Cost of Work Performed, or BCWP. This visual comparison plots earned value right next to our planned expectation. If the project is behind schedule, the physical accomplishment, and therefore the earned value, mathematically falls short of the planned value expectation. Converting physical progress into baseline dollars eliminates the subjective 80% done narrative.
You either earned the financial value of the task, or you didn't. Expressing work in strict financial terms allows for an objective comparison in executive dashboards. Earned value is the neutral arbiter. It forces project teams to prove their progress through quantified, baseline-approved value. To complete the diagnostic triad, we now introduce actual cost, or AC. Actual cost is the unfiltered reality of capital depleted to achieve the work performed. It answers the most direct financial question: how much money have we really spent? You will also see this documented as the actual cost of work performed, or ACWP. We now add actual cost to our chart to complete the triad's visual relationship. Actual cost is independent of the baseline. It simply tallies what was spent, regardless of what was planned or earned. When you compare actual cost directly to earned value, you instantly reveal the cost efficiency of the project. Actual cost represents cold, hard cash out the door.
It grounds the theoretical baseline and earned progress into uncompromising financial reality. By adding actual cost, there is nowhere for financial risk to hide. This matrix synthesizes the three core metrics into a unified executive view. Planned value is the plan. Earned value is the actual accomplishment. Actual cost is the real expenditure. Isolating these three variables gives leadership a complete diagnostic view of the project's health. This side-by-side matrix replaces subjective status updates with a mathematically sound foundation for governance. Mastering these metrics is a strategic imperative. They enable objective performance tracking, removing individual bias from the report. These metrics provide the raw data required to calculate exact efficiency indices and schedule variances, and they feed directly into the accurate cost and schedule forecasts required by the C-suite. Understanding PV, EV, and AC is the mandatory first step before moving into complex variance analysis. That brings us to the end of Episode 2, the three core metrics. Next time, we will tackle schedule and cost variances. To test your retention, what exactly does planned value represent? And what is the critical distinction between earned value and actual cost? Subscribe to Infinite Business Dynamics. Mastering this triad is the prerequisite for passing the PMP and achieving elite enterprise project governance.